Recording in progress.
Morning. Okay, well, I guess it's not morning anywhere there. It would be 12, right?
Oh yeah. Afternoon.
I think we for noon we just say, what do we say? If it's exactly noon, then it would be
Good noon.
afternoon. Yeah.
Wait a minute.
You would have, you could, at 12 on the dot, you could still say good morning.
It's still morning.
No, that's not right. 11:59. As soon as it's 12, it's PM. So yeah, you would say good afternoon.
Yeah. Wait a moment, because the echo is
Okay. So I added more to the job interview thing, and I don't want to spend too much time on that because it's mostly for the adult class. But I think there's some stuff there that's a lot of it is above their skill level. There are a few students that are at a higher proficiency level of English, but most of them are going to be pretty lost. But it's perfect for you, some of it.
Thank you. Wait a minute, because I'm still checking the audio side.
Am I echoing?
No.
Okay.
Hello. Still. Hello. Hello. Do you have class later?
Do I have what?
Class.
Yeah, I do.
What time will it be?
Not until the afternoon, around
Hello.
12:30 or 1:30.
12:30 or 1:30.
Yeah, I need to double check that. It's
okay.
But yeah. Actually, no, I think it's 1:30. Let me check. Yeah, it's 1:30.
In a moment, I need to go and put something. Sorry for taking up your time. Like yesterday, right? I have a student who asked me about root canal treatment. So I was trying to explain it to her, but I find it difficult for me to like tell her about it. Like sometimes we say that, oh, you have two options. It's either you get tooth extraction or you can opt for the root canal treatment, because when we extract the tooth, right, it will affect our facial appearance or facial expression, because when we extract it out, it becomes dented.
Appearance. Expression is more emotional.
It's more emotional. So I say that
he had a sad expression on his face. He had a happy expression. You wouldn't talk about someone's, yes, it is a physical thing, but it's not like, oh, he was missing a tooth, which gave him a misshapen expression or something. You would say like his jaw had a misshapen appearance due to his missing teeth.
So due to the missing teeth or missing tooth, like if let's say you just extract one of them.
Missing tooth for one.
Missing tooth. What about two? We say two teeth.
Yeah, that's plural.
Okay,
So
so
do you
does it
understand?
cause facial deformity or
Yeah.
facial?
Facial deformity is usually from birth. When
Oh,
people say facial deformity, it just the word itself conjures up like birth defects. Like to form something is to create it. So a deformity is usually something from birth. Like he was born with a deformity in his jaw.
in his jaw over here.
Versus someone who's injured, they probably aren't going to describe that as a deformity. They would describe it as an injury. Like, for example, someone in my high school had cancer of the jaw, so they had to remove his jaw, and he sort of had a basically it looked like he only had an upper jaw, and then below his upper jaw it was just skin and muscle. So his mouth was very strange looking.
You have the picture or the image of that?
Sure.
Oh yeah, would you be able to share the screen?
Sure. I wasn't gonna share it because I have some questions for you. Instead of doing a copying thing or listening and writing down, I thought this time I wanted to see if you could define some words that have to do with job interviews. All right, hold on, I'll share the screen.
All right.
And then I also have a movie script.
A movie script.
Yeah, I thought it would be interesting for you to see how script writing works. Like this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, oh, you mean the second one? Or I
The
think
first one. The first one was more like what he looked like, but his face was very young.
he was born like that, or
No,
he
he
was
had
born this way,
cancer.
or because of
Not because of chewing tobacco, actually. He just had a genetic predisposition to cancer.
sorry, it's because it's due to the genetics. So
Right.
he was
Some
born.
people have genes that just make it much more likely for them to get certain types of cancer. Like, have you heard there's a gene that predisposes you to breast cancer? A famous person, Angelina Jolie, she had this gene, and so she got a preventative mastectomy. I think preventative is the right word.
I think you
Mastectomy is
cut
the
down your breast.
yes, right. She was here, this actress.
We have mammogram and also mastectomy, right?
Yeah,
And yeah,
mammo has to do with milk. So the mammaries are the medical term for the breast.
memory.
Mammaries are breasts.
Oh, okay.
So she had her breasts removed, and then
She had her breast cut off or cut down.
both work.
Both work.
So because of her genes, she was concerned that she would basically, if you have a certain gene marker, they can do a test for it. There's like a very, very, very high chance that you'll get breast cancer. So she had the test done. They found the genetic marker. And then rather than wait until she has breast cancer, she decided to have the surgery at a younger age, when she was in her 40s. And then they removed the breast tissue and then put implants. So she got what they would say called a boob job, but hers was medically necessary.
Okay, so even though she had her mastectomy, but she still had implants on her chest.
Right, because she didn't want to
She
sacrifice the look of her body. She just
okay.
wanted to.
So she just put silicone inside.
Right, yeah. I believe, I don't know if it was silicone or saline. I don't know the details of breast implants. I just remember reading about it because I thought it was interesting. Like
Because
it was big in the news. It was in the news at the time because I think a lot of people weren't aware that you could have a test done that would let you know if you were predisposed to breast cancer. But anyway,
predisposed, what does
it
that
means
mean?
that,
Predisposed
so
or pre-diagnosed?
predisposed means that you have a very high chance of something occurring. Like
How
he
do I
was
spell it?
you could talk about emotions. He was predisposed to fits of anger. My father was a very hard man to live with. He was predisposed to fits of anger, or
Fits of anger.
fits like going on a crazy episode of anger, like throwing things, punching things.
You mean FEEDS? How do you spell it? FEEDS. Fits of anger.
FITS.
FITS. I thought fit is like, oh, whether you fit, you can fit in the clothes or not.
Have you heard like a child described as throwing a fit?
A child throwing a fit. I only heard of throwing tantrums,
It's the same thing.
throwing a fit,
It's
and
throwing a fit. But you also have something called an epileptic fit. An epileptic fit is the same as an epileptic seizure.
epileptic. Wait a moment. Epileptic seizure.
Yeah, but
So,
they used to be called before. In the old days of medicine, they didn't use the word seizure. They used the term fit.
no fit. Oh, okay. Where some kids when they get angry, they just
They go
yeah.
like that fit, or a fit. These are all common uses of fit. We have fit of rage.
So we have like so basically they are trembling when someone get mad, then they will tremble, right?
Yeah,
Somehow they tremble and then
this is beyond that.
so they are trying to
Or
control
like
anger,
freaking
but
out
then
and breaking stuff. A fit of rage would be like freaking out, breaking stuff, screaming, throwing chairs, just
speed of
picture
rage.
someone losing their mind, basically. And then
Oh,
the idea is it only lasts for a short time though, and then they go back to normal.
speed
It's
of
common
rage.
with it's common with people who have certain psychological disorders.
Hmm. Okay. So how do I make a sentence with that?
He flew into a fit of rage.
She grew into.
She flew into a fit of rage.
She flew. Why do we use the word flew?
Good question. I'm not sure about that one. I think because it picks when you fly into something, it implies speed. So this is something that happened suddenly. So he flew into a fit of rage. Okay.
She
You could
flew.
also say he went, but that's less common.
She went into.
And she heard her husband story. She flew into a fit of rage, or she went into a fit of rage. Either one
You
works.
destroy everything, right? When
Right.
you got into, when you
Yeah.
fly into a bit of rage, you begin to throw things up. Oh yeah, you don't say throw things up, right? Because throw up means you vomit, correct?
Uh, no. Yeah. Throw up is vomiting.
We don't say throw things up, right? We just say that oh you destroy things. Or that's fine
You
to
could
say throw
say
things up.
she threw things, but you wouldn't say threw up things.
You don't say throw things up. I don't say throw up things too. Just
Right.
throw things.
Anytime you have throw and up, it's gonna make people think you're talking about vomiting.
Yeah, throw up means vomiting. Okay,
A fit of rage, of an epileptic fit,
epileptic.
a fit of anger, a child throwing a fit.
So what about the kids lying down on the floor and then
Yeah, that's a
they just
tantrum or a fit. It's called the child threw a tantrum or the child threw a fit.
okay. Like here she goes again. She's throwing a fit again.
Yeah. You
Here
always use
she
this.
goes again.
You almost always throwing a temper tantrum, right?
Throwing a temper tantrum just
Yeah,
because they can't get the things that they want.
right.
Okay,
I think
got
it
you.
also has to do with like children are emotionally immature, right? So
Mhm.
we sort of give them a pass, or I think for children, I've seen children, even Asian kids, throwing temper tantrums. So I'm pretty sure it's universal. Even in Thailand, where people are a lot more calm in general, I would say.
Yeah.
Also, kids, I think, are less, well, I was gonna say less spoiled here, but a lot of my students are super spoiled, so I don't know if that's true. Like
You mean
parents give them
your
anything they
students in
want.
Thailand?
The rich ones, a lot of them have the wealthy parents let their kids do whatever they want. Some of them,
Mhm.
like they'll let them be very things that you would expect the parent to step in and say, okay, that's enough. It's like they're, if you've ever seen like a child in a store and saying like, I want this, I want this, I want this, and then their mother's like,
Okay, fine,
okay,
I'll buy for you.
like just giving them anything they want just to keep them happy, keep them from crying or whatever.
I see. Got you.
Right. I've seen it before, especially the case I saw, it was the nanny. Like the kid was in the 7-Eleven and just dragging his nanny around and making her buy things for him. Right.
I see.
Anyway, not to get off topic. So do you feel like you understand the use of throwing as a transitive verb, like
Mhm.
throwing a fit, throwing a tantrum?
Yeah, yeah, I get it now. Is
Okay.
that idiomatic or it's a phrasal verb?
Mm, I don't know. It's so common that it's hard for me to,
Okay.
I would say partially, but I don't know if that's idiomatic or not. I don't think so. I think that falls into just common usage.
Common usage.
And I don't think for something to be idiomatic, it has to be regional, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think this is very regional. I think that in the UK they still say throwing a tantrum,
Throwing a
throwing a
tantrum.
fit.
Okay, I learned a new stuff.
Yeah,
Thank.
no problem.
So, like just now, you say predisposed, right?
Oh,
How
yeah, right.
do I
So
spell that?
predispose. So
Dispose means discard something.
predisposed means that you're like more, it's something like here, they used it in this ad. Like, how do you know if you're predisposed to having strokes or predisposed to cancer, predisposed to something, like predisposed to depression? It means that something's
Is
in your
pre-exposed?
predisposed. It means that something's in your genes.
Mm,
There's genetic factors. Like someone could be predisposed to drug addiction. And how would you know that? Well, look at their family. Like maybe their father was an alcoholic, their mother was addicted to alcohol or drugs, their
Can I
grandfather was an alcoholic. So there's something genetic in their family that
So
makes it,
basically, this is a scientific term, right? For in a medical term
yes,
to tell. Like, can I say that, oh, I might be predisposed with diabetes because
or you
I
say
have
predisposed,
a diabetes, I
you
have a
say
family history.
predisposed to
Two,
diabetes.
two, not with, okay.
Yeah.
Predisposed to,
Yeah, see, look at all the things that come up.
and then,
Predisposed to a disease, predisposed to addiction, cancer, depression, alcoholism, violence, mental illness. So they're all things that are in someone's genes and that cause it increases the likelihood of you having whatever disease,
likelihood.
having blank disease. Predisposed to blank equals the likelihood of blank happening to you is much relatively high.
Blank,
Like
blank disease.
predisposed to blank means
Oh,
that
okay, means you put,
the likelihood of you being diagnosed with is relatively high.
is that how you spell likelihood? Is that a Y or an I?
This is correct.
Likelihood. Oh, okay. I thought it is L-I.
You might be right. Let me check that.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay. So we put I
Wait.
in the middle.
Okay, yeah, cool. Yeah, you're right.
Okay,
But
thank you.
anyway, the definition is the same.
So if I want to tell it in sentence, I say I might be predisposed to diabetes because I have a family history, or I
Yeah.
have
Correct.
a family
You
history
have a family history of
of
diabetes.
diabetes.
Therefore, you feel that you are predisposed.
So I
to
need to get
diabetes.
my self check, or I have to go through the screening test.
Right. That would make sense.
I will go through the screening or I will go through the health screening.
Both seem correct to me. You would go to the screening. I would say rather than using the gerund there, I would say
They go check up.
right, you'd have a checkup. But rather than using the gerund, I would say I would go to be screened. I'm going to be screened. Use the past participle. I'm
I
going
am
to
going to
be
be
I'm
screened.
going to be screened for diabetes, or I'm going to be screened for cancer because I have a predisposition to cancer.
So how can you know that you have predisposition to a
Family history.
family history? You can
Like if
tell from
if,
family
if a
history.
lot of people in your family have died of cancer, then at a eventually, if people live long enough, they'll get cancer, right? If people are dying of cancer when they're 80 or 90, that's pretty normal. But if you have a lot of people in your family that are dying of cancer when they're in their 40s, 50s, 60s, then or younger, then
You're on the
that
high
shows a,
risk.
right, that shows a predisposition, or not even dying if they're just right, because there's a lot of cancer, like breast cancer, it's pretty common for them to catch it and then I know a few people with breast cancer and I don't know anyone that died of it. There's lots of people that die of it, sure, but in countries with a high standard of medical care, they're usually able to catch it and then they can have a mastectomy. They can cut off the cancerous.
Will it spread?
Is it rare? No, it's pretty common.
Okay, once you cut it off, then it won't spread. Right.
I think that's usually what happens. You'd have to ask an oncologist, which is a cancer doctor.
Oncologist?
Yeah, this oncology is
Oncologist.
yeah, oncology is the study of cancer. So oncologist,
It's an expert in oncology.
yeah.
Okay.
All right, anyway, so let's look. All right, I have some words for you, so I'm gonna stop the share.
Okay.
Okay, what is an applicant?
Applicant? Applicant is like a candidate who applies for a job.
Good. And
Applies
what
for,
is
applies to a job.
for?
Applies for a job.
Okay.
Okay.
What about prospective employer?
Prospective employer.
Uh-huh.
Prospective employer means prospect simply means like client or customer. So prospective employer, it could mean the company, the potential company or corporate that might have the association with my own employer.
I think you're overthinking it. Also, I don't think you have the right definition of prospective. So prospective employer is the person or company which is hopefully hiring you if you're applying for a job. Prospective means looking for something.
Looking for something.
So they're looking for it. They're looking for new prospects. A prospect is something that they're looking for. So a prospective employer is someone that it could be your new employer.
So prospect.
In a job interview, you have two parties. You have the prospective employer and the prospective employee.
Prospective employer and prospective employee. So
right. If you're interviewing for a job, you are the prospective employee.
so they are looking for the job applicants. They are looking for someone to fill in the vacancy.
Right. It's like employer, but not yet. An employee, but not yet.
That's mean potential
Yes.
employer or.
But we don't normally say potential. We say prospective.
Okay. So what about the corporates or company that associates with say my company? Is that
Would be like that sounds like a client.
Oh, that is
Describing a client.
Can I say prospective client? You will need to go.
A prospective client is that's a client that you're like trying to date.
Yeah.
Like an emotion, like the way people date. Prospective means like hoping to have in the future.
Hoping.
But not yet. Like expected to be part of something, but not yet. Like expected or expecting to be something particular in the future. Like a prospective buyer, you have a house and your real estate agent is showing prospective buyers around the house. So there are people that could be buyers, but we haven't got that far yet. A prospective client, same thing.
So I can say that like let's say I am the employer and I am asking my employee to try to persuade the prospective client, like try your best to convince the prospective client to sign this agreement.
Yeah, good.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Wait a moment. I need to charge my laptop. That's done. Okay. Perspective guide. Okay.
Okay, what about overqualified?
Overqualified, like this post is like some vacancies or posts, they don't really require highly qualified candidates to apply, but yeah, and the salary that they offer is not on is not it doesn't meet the high expectation for
So we're think about overqualified as in terms of the prospective employee or the applicant. So
overqualified.
if you're overqualified, let's say you applied to McDonald's, you would be overqualified if you have a degree in engineering.
Yeah,
You're working at McDonald's. People would say,
oh, you're overqualified.
right, like some businesses won't hire people who are overqualified.
Why? Because of
they're
the
afraid
salary
that they're
being
going
kicked
to be
out.
unhappy,
Oh,
or they're afraid that they're only applying for that job because they they are just doing it as a temporary. So they're worried about turnover. Turnover is when someone leaves a job right after starting there. So overqualified applicants have a much higher rate of quitting because first of all, they're going to be frustrated because it's going to be boring and easy for them. Second of all, they're going to have trouble. They could have trouble taking orders from people who they see as beneath them. And thirdly, uh, if you're overqualified, then you're probably still looking for the job in your field. If you're an engineer working at McDonald's, you're probably still applying to engineering positions. And as soon as you get that engineering position, you're going to quit McDonald's. And then that means McDonald's has to hire a new person and train them. You know, every time they hire someone new, they have costs that they have to go through, training costs, time costs, the cost of someone messing up an order, that sort of thing.
okay.
But McDonald's isn't a very good example because they hire pretty much everyone.
So they don't really look at the qualification as long
Yeah,
as
I mean, as long as you're not a criminal, they're probably gonna hire you. But like a place like, I don't know, like a janitorial company, a place
yeah,
that hires custodians are janitors. If they're hiring janitors, they're probably not gonna hire someone who's, or they might hesitate to hire someone
I
who
mean
is a qualified engineer.
janitors mm, basically means a cleaner, right? Cleaner
Right.
of
But
the premise.
right. McDonald's, I don't know if this is true, but I think that McDonald's is probably pretty good at just quickly hiring people and training them. And they're not too worried about the cost of people leaving. And a lot of I think them being a giant corporation, they probably just don't care that much. But who knows? They might be worried about overqualified applicants too. But
Have you ever tried
a
being one?
janitorial service, that's a bit of a better job than working at McDonald's. At least it is in the West. So
Janitorial.
yeah, right. It's a decent job. Like the pay is decent, but it's gonna be
Very tiring.
well, not just that. It's going to be difficult to find you a replacement if you're an engineer, you work as a janitor and then you have to quit right away as soon as you get a job as an engineer. Or maybe you don't want to clean up something because you feel like it's below your social status. That's why companies, you would think, oh, someone who's overqualified would have no problem getting a job, but in many cases, that's not true.
So like in China, we have a lot of fresh graduates that they can't really find a high paid job. They end up becoming a nanny and a private home tutor. Would it shall we call them overqualified too? Like a lot of
Not for a tutor. You generally need to have some form of education to be a tutor, whether or not you graduated. But for a nanny, yeah.
basically you are just bringing the kids around and then you just play with
Right.
them. You
Yeah.
just and then they earn quite a lot. I think about like 8,000 USD per month.
Yeah. Per week,
Per month, 8,000 USD.
still a lot. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't, I think that being overqualified is more complicated than just the money involved. Because some jobs like teaching doesn't pay well, but compared to like being a doctor, teachers make less. But in fact, teachers, at least in the West, they make less than a qualified plumber would make more than a teacher. But if a teacher was working in a plumber couldn't do a teacher's job, and a teacher would probably really feel uncomfortable doing a plumber's job. They wouldn't be able to. They would have to take special training. It's just like it's more complicated than just salary.
Okay.
Like there are policemen that make more than university professors.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
but a university professor would probably take issue if they were told like, oh, you need to become you need to go be a cop for a while. They might feel like it's below their social station.
oh, okay. Like the university professor, I read an article. It's about the professors were underpaid, right? And then they are just like contract professors, right? Or we call them
Yeah, interim professor.
interim professor. So
There's another term for that, adjunct.
adjunct professor. I think it's pretty common in the US, right?
Right. You have adjunct professors and then you have tenured professors. They're all competing to get tenure. Once you have tenure, it means that you have a lot of job security. I'm
So
sure
they
your
are
salaries go up.
so they are trying to lengthen or extend the tenure, which is
Well,
also
once you have tenure, that's it. You're set. It's very hard to lose tenure.
it's very hard to lose tenure.
Yeah. In this case, tenure is used as a noun. Like a tenured, well, tenured is an adjective, but someone who has tenure means that they're like a permanent professor employed by that university.
So they have a permanent post.
Right. And they get all sorts of benefits, job security that an adjunct professor doesn't have.
An adjunct professor doesn't have
Right.
that. Doesn't has that or doesn't have that?
Doesn't have.
Doesn't have.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because you have to put
Good.
the base form, the base word.
Right.
Okay, I got you. Adjunct professor. Tenure, because I thought that tenure is like a period of time. Like
It is.
when we have
It is, but in this case, it's not being used. it's become used in it's obtained a different meaning. Similar, like you're still talking about a unit of time, sort of. Like a tenured professor, it means that they're there for a certain tenure, but now it's just become that tenure is indefinite. You have to, there's something called losing tenure, where like if a professor does something really bad, like, I don't know, something like
If
involved
you
with
misbehave, you
cheating
might lose
or,
your tenure.
right, they can lose tenure. Or like if they commit a crime, something like that.
Okay, got you. Because between the landlords and the tenants, right, when they want to sign the agreement, they will have the tenure agreement, right?
That's a tenant.
Yeah, that's a tenant. And then they will sign a tenure agreement, like, oh, okay, you have to rent for at least 5 years, or else you get a penalty charge, or your deposit will be forfeited.
I have not heard of that.
Oh, okay. Do
Could be,
you have
that
to
could be
sign an
true. It's
agreement?
that could be true, but it's not something that I've heard about. So
Like in Thailand, right? When you rent a space for yourself,
yeah, you
to
can
sign
sign
an
agreements. A lot of landlords, especially for foreigners, will require them to sign an agreement saying like, if they don't rent for a minimum amount of time, then they'll lose their security deposit.
security deposit.
Right. But the language changes, and plus they don't really think in terms of English. So I just don't know what, I know what you're talking about. I don't know if that's actually called a tenure agreement, but if, I'm sure that's what it's called. I just don't want to speak on it, because I've never heard something called a tenure.
Because I learned math before, and then I learned the matured value.
Tenure agreement for personal, and I don't see anything about real estate.
It applies to the insurance company, and also for, like, let's say you apply for the fixed deposit, you have a tenure that you have to adhere to.
Okay. But when that's used in, what I'm saying is when it's used in academia, like it doesn't have the same meaning.
Okay.
A tenured professor is a permanent professor.
A tenure professor is a permanent professor.
Tenured,
You put another D, right?
like this. It's just the past tense of, tenure, tenured.
Oh, okay.
The opposite would be an adjunct professor.
John, can I say contract professor? Like right now in Malaysia, we have a lot of MOs, right? A lot of medical officers, and then they are all on contract. So I call them.
I don't know. It probably depends on the country.
We
I
say
can only speak for
contracted doctors or contract doctors.
What are they? They're doctors that are just there, like they're traveling.
No, because like the hospital has very limited vacancies. Almost all of the vacancies are filled, and then they are, because the universities are producing chunks of fresh grads, and they don't have a job, but still they need to go through their housemanship for at least one
It's called a residency.
residency
Yeah.
doctor.
That's like after you do 4 years of medical school, then you become a resident doctor. A resident doctor is like, it's like a probationary doctor.
Residential doctor.
No, you just call them a resident
A resident doctor.
doctor.
Or I just call them resident. Oh, sorry. Oh, Okay, so
You call them a resident doctor or a resident.
probationary doctor.
Yeah, that's what it is, basically. I mean, you're already a full doctor, though. Like, it's not like and you have interns who are just still in medical school, but they're in their last year of medical school. And then you have residents who they're like brand new doctors. They just finished medical school.
Can I call them houseman doctor or houseman?
I have no idea. I've never heard that term before.
Could you help me to check that? Houseman. Houseman doctor.
It looks like it's a Malaysian thing.
British.
British English.
Okay. It's not American.
Okay, that's not a full doctor. This is someone who has nearly finished training as a doctor. It's an intern, synonymous with intern.
Okay. Someone who has nearly finished training as a doctor and is working in the hospital. Houseman.
Right.
So I don't need to call them houseman doctor. I just call them houseman is enough.
I don't know. I've never used this term.
Okay.
But in American English, it's a resident is a doctor working at a hospital where he or she is being trained. The British English equivalent is registrar.
So this is only specifically for the doctors, or it could be for the nurse and other
Only
health
doctors.
professionals. So I can just call them resident. That's fine.
Yeah. But it sounds like in Malaysia they probably would use registrar.
Yeah, we call them houseman or registrar.
But
because here in
according to this, a houseman is not a full doctor. They would still be a medical school student. They would be an intern. An intern is someone that's in their later years. They're in their later years of medical school. Part of going to medical school is you have to be like a trainee for a while. So a resident has already graduated from medical school and now they're going around and learning medicine. But an intern is still in medical school, so they don't have the privileges that a doctor has. Like a resident can write prescriptions for people, but an intern cannot.
They don't have the privilege or the power to read.
Right, they're not a doctor, they're just a medical student. But a resident is a resident, or I guess a registrar. A registrar. Yeah, here we go.
A medical registrar.
A registrar is a full doctor. But they're just.
But they are not
like,
experienced.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Okay. But for the resident, we have secondary meaning, which is the people who live in the a certain area or certain region, right? Like, I reside in.
Yeah, it has that meaning. That's the primary meaning. Resident is, when we talk about a resident doctor, that's specific to medicine.
Okay, that is
normally a resident is just someone who lives there.
So that is
it comes from the history of medicine. So it used to be a resident was a doctor that actually lived in the hospital. Like it used to be that residents were required to live in a hospital, and then that's how they learned. But
now it doesn't work, right? It doesn't work.
Yeah, it just doesn't work that way because you can't just. They don't have housing for them. It wouldn't work well.
Okay.
So they kept the name, but the actions have changed.
So, okay.
There's a lot of words like that in English that, like, for example, chef. A chef is a French word and it means chief. So like the head of something. So it used to be that chef meant that they were the head of the restaurant, right?
Head of the restaurant.
But now you could just say, oh, he's a chef, and it doesn't mean that they have to be the head of the restaurant. You have like head chef, sous chef. A head chef is like the head of the restaurant, like the head cook. And then a sous chef is the chef that's underneath them and they just chop the food for them.
Sous chef. How
Sous
do
chef
I-
is SOUS.
SOUS.
It's a French word, but it's used in English.
Oh,
A sous chef is like an underling chef.
and under?
Underling, like a
How do I
you
spell
can
that?
hire like here. So you have a sous chef,
Oh,
it's an under chef. You see,
under chef.
right? You have in big restaurants, you have all this stuff. You have uh the executive chef, like the head chef. That's the one who commands all the other ones. The sous chef, that's the one underneath them.
Why do you
I
have
don't know what a senior chef is, but I guess it's
chef
another position. But then you have pastry chef, they make desserts. Sauce chef, they're making the sauces. Fish chef, a poissonneur. Poisson is, I guess, fish in French, but I'm not sure. And
So
then
this chef is like someone who is very good at slicing the fish or remove the toxins, like the puffer fish, right? Puffer fish
Right.
is toxic, and then
generally
I see a
a
lot of
sous chef is yeah, they're good at chopping things.
sorry, you
Oh,
mean
you're talking about the fish chef?
just now you said that someone who is very good at chopping.
Oh
That
yeah, that would be a sous chef is usually the chopper. But
so
I don't think that using puffer fish is that common in Western restaurants. But maybe in
common in Japan.
yeah, but the Japanese probably have their own word for that. They probably don't call them sous chefs. They probably call them like some Japanese word.
Okay.
This is like a Western hierarchy, a Western thing.
Okay.
It's probably pointless for you to learn unless you like just are curious about it.
I'm just curious about
Yeah,
that.
it's kind of fun. But
Mhm.
if you'll see the word sous chef sometimes, so it's useful to know that one.
So if let's say I am interested in learning how to cook, so I should apply to culinary course. Am I right?
You should apply to a
Not
culinary
cooking course.
course. Yeah,
We don't call that cooking course, right? Culinary course.
you can call it cooking class. A cooking class is a culinary class. Cooking
Culinary
school, culinary school.
culinary
Like
school.
culinary school is like a college for chefs.
Okay, I got you. And then okay, so for those who are interested to be the air crews, like the pilot and stewardess, they will need to go to the aviaries.
Careful with your pronunciation. You have a steward and stewardess, and
Steward.
steward and stewardess, just like waiter and waitress. And then you have the cabin crew. The cabin crew is all of the stewards and stewardesses.
Cabin crews. So cabin
You
crew,
just use cabin crew. You don't use
you don't put S.
yeah.
Cabin crew includes the steward and stewardess.
Right. The stewards and stewardesses.
How about the people who helps to carry to transport the luggages and the
That's a baggage handler.
baggage handler?
Yeah.
What about porter?
That sounds British.
Oh, okay.
I think a porter isn't specifically for airports. I think a porter is anyone, like when you get to a hotel and then someone says, here, let me take your bags for you. And they have that cart that they push up. You probably see them in movies. That's,
Mhm. They will have some kind of like trolley,
or a bellboy.
a bellboy.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, I heard of that before.
a porter. Yeah, okay. Yeah, this is a porter.
Porter, you see the porter specifically in the hotel only.
No, I think you're probably, when you said it was like a baggage handler, you could probably say that it's also about airports too.
So we can see a porter in the airport too.
From American English, that you have a baggage handler. Okay, this is the baggage handler.
So they work behind the scene.
Yeah, they're the guys that you see outside an airplane throwing your baggage and destroying it.
So like, what about if we want to call the land that the the aircraft stay, like the landing place for the aircraft, how do we say that?
The runway.
Oh, the runway. Oh, yeah, runway.
I'm gonna go ahead and say that it says that they have baggage handlers at Changi Airport. I think that it's probably universal, the term baggage handler. I don't think that they're using porter.
Or they won't use the word porter.
Right.
So if let's say I want to get my airplane repaired, I have to send them to the hangar, right?
Yeah, a hangar is like a garage for airplanes.
Hangar. So I say that all the airplane is landing on the runway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Runway is for takeoff and landing.
For runway is for take off, for taking off and landing.
Right. Like
Okay.
here, look at an aerial view of an airport.
Aerial
That's
runway.
the big one. Let's look at Changi Airport. So if you look at the satellite view,
Mm-hmm.
okay, we need to change it. Let's change it to satellite. Okay, so now we're looking at the airport. Okay, so here are the runways.
Cool, cool.
Runways would be here.
Uh-huh.
Okay, this is a taxiway. These are taxiways because the airplane taxis back and forth from the boarding gate, which is this thing,
Let's
to the
see.
runway. On the runway, they're gonna take off and land.
Okay, so if
And
let's
then
say they
you have
stop right
hangar.
there for the passengers to come in, that is called as the taxi station. I'm sorry, but the connection is a little bit off. Hello?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Sorry.
Okay. Well, hopefully that answers your questions about the airport.
Because I wasn't there just now. Could you please go back to the Google map and that
Sure.
can.
I'll do it quickly because then I have to get ready.
Oh, okay, no problem.
All right, so let's look at Changi Airport.
Yeah.
So you have, here's your runway. here,
Uh-huh.
okay? And then these interconnected roads are called taxiways.
Taxiway.
Taxiways. The verb we use when we talk about an airplane going to and from the gate, this is the gate. The boarding gate
Mhm.
is taxiing. We would say the airplane lands on the runway and then taxis to the boarding gate, right?
Taxis to the boarding gate.
Right, and that's where the people get off and on.
Mm-mm. Okay, I got you.
Yep.
Yeah, and
Hopefully
then
that is helpful.
yeah, it's very helpful for me.
Okay,
Yeah, I guess it's almost time. It's time's up already.
yeah, it's a
Time,
little.
you say time is out or time is a little bit
Time's up. You would say time's up.
time's up.
Mhm.
Like last time you say, oh, our time is a little bit out or a little bit off.
I don't know what I said last time. I might have said that we're a little bit over our time,
The time is a little bit over.
right?
Okay. All right. So anything, I'll leave you a text. And thank you so much for today's lesson.
No problem. All
Thanks
right,
so
see you
much.
next week.
See you and goodbye.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.